Dun, dun, dun. What's on TV?
I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Hey, this is Chris Gore. You're listening to Dr. Gonzo Radio on Dr. Gonzo Piqua something.com. I don't know. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah, we'll have Zach. I'll have Zach do the next bumper.
So, hey, Dr. Gonzo's here.
Put a dime in him, you gotta let the whole song play out.
He's like human jukebox.
Oh, he's a talker, ain't he?
He's an old fat grandpa man.
Our parents were the greatest generation. Our dads went overseas to fight a war. As soon as they came back, they grabbed our moms and hit the sack, and there they stayed from 1946 to 64. Making babies.
Lots of babies.
The baby boomers.
76 million.
And we grew older, but we're not dead yet.
Hail to the king, baby.
And yeah, I'm a baby boomer. Here, Dr. Gonzo, the Gringo, where everyone of any kind of color is welcome. All are welcome here. I'm here with my good friend in Texas, Brett R. Smith. Brett colors comic books.
Yeah.
Really cool gig, man. And also, Brett is on a really good channel that I'm actually a member of and I support, called Bounding Into Comics. Brett, tell them a little bit about your show on Bounding Into Comics.
Yeah, I've got a show on Bounding Into Comics. I do a weekly video. It usually drops on Thursdays. Sometimes it'll be Friday, but typically Thursdays. And it's called Escape from the Future. And it's a mix of, I interview creators, guys who have campaigns, comic book, graphic novel campaigns. I just interviewed Brian Pulido. I interviewed Terry Shappert. I interviewed Russ Leach. So I'll have him on. Terry Shappert I had on to talk about his TV show, Hollywood Weapons. But I'll have creators on to talk about their comic books that they're crowdfunding or they typically have out in retail. And the other purpose of the show was to highlight 80s and 90s films that I think are essential as far as viewing and owning. And I just did my first unboxing. I'll show you this because this is pretty cool. I just bought this, which is the Conan Chronicles from Arrow Video, and this is a box.
Oh, cool.
It's a box set of both Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. So both 80s Conan, Arnold Schwarzenegger films. And Arrow Video did a 4K restoration. They redid the sound. It's got 3 different cuts of Conan the Barbarian. It's got an extended cut I've never seen. It's got, audio commentary. It's got all the extras. It's got 2 movie posters in it and a really cool book as well. But anyway, I just did an unboxing video, which I've never done before, and that'll drop next week. But
where can you get that at, Brett?
You can get this at Arrow Video for $55, and then I found it on Amazon for $39.99. So you can get it a little bit cheaper there. But this is limited edition. It also comes with these fold-out posters of both Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. So you can fold these out and have the original one sheet. These one sheets are expensive. I've got the Conan the Barbarian one sheet behind me, and I bought it off eBay. It's a real one sheet. It's a real movie poster from back in the day. It's expensive, and it was even more expensive to get it framed, funny enough. But these are really cool to have because, if you want a one sheet, you can pick this up and you can have it for $55 along with both movies. But the series, like I said, I wanted to kind of highlight movies that maybe you might have missed from the 80s or the 90s and recommend some good stuff. Another thing I picked up from Arrow a couple months ago was the Tremors, the first Tremors.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Classic, man. I love those.
And again, this is a restoration. They've gone back and they include all of the extras that came on the DVDs or the Blu-rays before it. So you get all of the great stuff, all the special contents that movie geeks like you and I love, and they just do a really nice job. I had never really heard of Arrow before, and then I discovered, they have this huge back catalog of all these movies that they've put out, and they put together these beautiful box sets with great artwork. And so, Escape from the Future. We came up with that idea originally because it's like modern entertainment kind of sucks. There is some
sucks a rat. Yeah,
there's some good stuff out there, right? But I would say that largely it's a lot of garbage. And so you've really got to be kind of keen and aware of the good stuff that's out there. It's not, everything doesn't completely suck, and you don't have to cancel all of your subscriptions, but there's some good stuff out there. But at the same time, we can always go back and mine the past. We can escape to the future. We can escape the future and go back and check out old movies. I sent you a link, or I posted something yesterday. We were talking about Blake Edwards' movie that he did in 1989.
Skin Deep. Yeah.
With John Ritter. Yeah. And it's
that was hilarious.
It's a great movie. It's on Pluto TV right now that you can stream for free.
I don't know what to say. Oh, but the Lord is my shepherd.
Meet Zach Hutton.
Darling?
After 10 years of marital bliss, his luck is about to run out.
Come on, Angie, for God's sake. Oh.
He's been thrown out, and he's about to discover that being single can be dangerous.
I've worked 5 years to build this body, and for one night, it's all yours. How do you feel about that?
Like Mrs. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Hi, honey.
Morning. Sorry I'm late.
Now, Zach wants his old life back.
I was about to suggest that we give it another try.
Are you completely off your nut?
And he won't take no for an answer.
Is this a bad time?
John Ritter.
But there is a God! And he's a gag writer! What the
In a Blake Edwards film.
God, I wish I didn't hate you so much, Zach.
Mom. Mom. Is this for Mom.
Skin Deep.
If you're a fan of the Pink Panther movies or anything that Blake Edwards has done, I think it's probably one of his stronger films, because he can be kind of a hit or miss kind of a guy, but when he hits, it's really good. But I love that movie. It's kind of a comedy. It's a rom-com comedy, but it's also got some great philosophical, aspects to it, which I think are really interesting. So it's kind of a deep movie, even though it's got that condom sequence, the glow in the dark condoms, which is
yeah. I always preferred the ribbed, but anyway.
Right.
Blake Edwards was or is married to Julie Andrews. Right?
Julie Andrews, yeah.
I remember Victoria. Boy, that was a scandal.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, you go back and look at something like that, and it's like, could that get made today? I'm not sure. It's the same with what's that De Palma movie with Michael Caine where he plays the
Dressed to Kill.
Dressed to Kill, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, boy,
that was a great movie. That was scary, man.
Yeah. I read the other day that I think De Palma is retired. I also read the other day that Peter Weir is sadly retired. He said he has no more energy. And World of Real has a good article about whether De Palma is is done, you know, and a lot of these guys are getting old. They're getting into their 80s, unfortunately. But you know, these guys have made probably some of the most iconic movies, and it's great to go back and watch them because they're just as powerful, if not more, than they were today than they were back then. Just given the kind of bleak state of entertainment, you know, and the creatives. So it's all this DEI stuff, you know, it's just ruining entertainment. So,
and we're going to go more deep into that. You can find Brett also at Pop Culture Warriors.
Yep.
And what's the main site on that?
We do that for
you and Lisa.
Yeah, we do that for the Post Millennial. We haven't done one in a while just because we've both been really busy, and it's something we were doing kind of in our spare time. But there's also some great interviews there with, you know, guys like Robert Davi and others that we've had on Pop Culture Warriors. You can find that at the Post Millennial on YouTube and Rumble, and Bounding into Comics also, their channel is on YouTube and Rumble, where you can find Escape from the Future. So check it out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a link to, especially to your Terry's video, the weapons video.
Yeah.
I always thought he looked like Henry Rollins.
Yeah, he does. You know, it's weird. He also kind of sometimes looks sort of like Mel Gibson to me sometimes too. You know, when I catch him.
He's a badass though, man.
Yeah, and Hollywood Weapons is such a cool show. It's kind of amazing to me that more film geeks and movie lovers don't even know about that show. But it's on the Outdoor Channel, which is kind of the odd man out on the Outdoor Channel, because the Outdoor Channel is hunting and fishing and outdoors type stuff. So you've got this one show which is all about sort of proving whether special effects and movie magic works or if it doesn't work. And
man, I love TV and movies, and let's face it, it's become a huge part of our culture. And let me tell you, in the military, we are serious fans just like you are. But sometimes I see a scene and I think to myself, can you really do that? I'm Terry Shappert. As a U.S. Army Green Beret medic, sniper, and close combat specialist, I've been tested most of my life. I'm here to put Hollywood to the test. This is Hollywood Weapons.
Hollywood Weapons is a little like Mythbusters on steroids, in the sense that we're just basically trying to recreate these scenes that we've known and loved from film and television.
Meet me in October Plaza, 33rd floor, 1 hour. It's a scientific show. It's a film and TV lovers show. All those things are combined for a really entertaining experience where you see how you do stuff behind the scenes, and then you put this knucklehead to the test and see if he can actually make that shot. Are you guys actually gonna give me the shot to do this myself? Oh my God, I couldn't do it again. Smile, you son of a...
Films like Jaws, Die Hard.
Hey, welcome to the party, pal.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. TV shows like one that I've been on for years, Criminal Minds. We've got Terry out there, you know, obviously having a ball.
And I thought you were gonna be bad. Never gonna get an even tan.
We need somebody who's a former Green Beret sniper with the experience he's had to kind of ask him to do the kinds of crazy things that are demanded in a show like this.
I guess you could say the reason I wanted to be involved in this show were some selfish reasons. First of all, I love TV and film, and I'm a combat guy, I'm a special forces guy, so I wanted to learn how you do it behind the scenes, and I also wanted to be given the challenge of seeing if I could actually do that under real world conditions with those real weapons in real time.
Well, I think the best part of making a show, the best part of making any show is just the kind of the things you discover by doing it and the camaraderie of the people. I mean, I personally love the interplay between Larry and Terry. I mean, so we've got the new Abbott and Costello going here with these two guys.
Larry.
Hey, Terry.
I knew you hoped I was gonna be gone, but I'm not. I'm back, and I have another quest.
What kind of crazy idea have you come up with now?
Mildly intimidating. I just want you to know I look really good in a wetsuit.
Too much information, my man. Too much information.
I feel like a really ugly dolphin at SeaWorld that you just have to keep feeding.
You're not that ugly, so...
The guys I work with, the photographers, the sound guys, the directors, the writers, all the special effects guys, and of course my now BFF Larry Zanoff.
I'm looking for a guy named Terry. I'm supposed to meet him up here. When did you put this radio in my desk?
when I stole your cell phone. Listen to me, man. Time is ticking. Are you in or out? We've really had a great team. We have a lot of fun. And at the end of it, we all shake hands and have a good laugh.
And that, my friend, is how you blow up a shark.
I mean, I think the takeaway from the show is it's almost somewhat educational in the sense that everybody likes to be able to finally have something that they maybe wondered about realized. In other words, hey, can this thing happen? And to be able to know in a half-hour entertaining program, see, oh yeah, it can or cannot, and being done in a very safe and sane way as well.
I really hope first and foremost that the audience of Hollywood Weapons enjoys themselves. I also hope they realize how smart and clever the special effects guys are, and also appreciate some of the safety concerns that have to be built in when you're filming these things. And I also hope they like the idea of how hard some of these shots are.
Well, how did it go in practice?
What do you mean? I could have been practicing?
Well, I would have been practicing if I was taking that shot.
Main point, watch Hollywood Weapons.
Centered around firearms and guns and explosives and cool stuff. So, but that's what is it? That's on Freevee right now. You can stream Hollywood Weapons on Tubi. I'm sorry, it's on Tubi. You can stream seasons 1 through 5, and then they've got a new season on the Outdoor Channel. But you got to subscribe to the Outdoor Channel. So,
and I will provide a link down below so you can see Brett's great interview with Terry. It was really good. Okay, so Brett and I were talking in the green room before we came on. Now it's really not green. Mine is green. Mine's a discotheque. But I went and watched Afterlife, and there's going to be Afterlife, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Right.
And there's some myths flying around, and this is not going to be spoilers. I'm going to do a review on it, but it pissed me off because I raised 2 daughters. Okay. And yeah, I'm an old fat grandpa, man, all that stuff. So I'm 67. So maybe I'm just old fashioned, but I read an article that said that Frozen Empire, that Phoebe was not gay enough. Spoiler alert, Phoebe is not gay in this. Now, you could perhaps have a takeaway with it. So without spoilers, Phoebe makes a friend, okay? She's a science geek. She's feeling kind of outcast from the team. Like 15-year-olds feel isolated sometimes, especially science nerd type of things.
Sure.
And so Phoebe makes a friend, and they get close. They're 2 girls. It's a girl kind of dressed as Madonna. So without going into spoilers, they have a friendship going on, and it has a twist to it. But that twist does not include hugging, kissing, and I'm not going to say other stuff. But, it's not gay. Oh, my gosh. And we were talking sometimes. And I love my YouTube channel, fellows. I don't do this for the money. I have a regular gig, and plus I have my music, and plus I have studio stuff. So I don't monetize. So I'm not in it for the money. So I don't have to sensationalize things, because if you go into this movie, Frozen Empire, that Phoebe is in some kind of homosexual relationship or whatever, well, all I can say is there's a reason the dad for Beetlejuice isn't going to be in the next movie. So we can leave it at that.
Jeffrey Jones. Yeah. David Milch brought him back for the Deadwood movie, but he had quite a diminished role. The character of Merrick didn't have a whole lot of screen time in the movie. I still liked seeing him there, but I do find it unfortunate about Jeffrey's behavior, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and of course we forgive people like that and all that, but it seems like they want to train with DEI. Back to DEI, they want to train people to see this, or to look into this, or hey, you might be having these thoughts or feelings. Man, I raised 2 daughters, Brett.
Yeah.
At 15 years old, they didn't confide in dad. They didn't all the time confide in mom either.
Sure.
They had their friends. As we were talking, girls dance together. And can anybody reveal the secret of why they go to the bathroom at a drive-in together? You know, I mean,
or at a show,
or at a show
at a
when you're on a
restaurant.
double date.
Yeah.
What do they talk about? That's what I want to know.
What are they doing in there when they
what
go?
are they doing in there?
Powder their noses or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Of course, that probably had a different connotation in the 80s. Powder your nose.
Yeah, I know that one. but again, girls feel intimacy differently than guys do.
Yes.
You know, I can hug a guy. I can tell both Brett and Lisa that I love them because I love them as friends. You know,
sure.
I'm comfortable with my heterosexuality. You know, and I can tell people I love them and mean that sincerely. But doesn't mean I'm going to go lip lock anybody. Please shoot me in the knee if I ever even try.
You know, there was the left kind of did the same thing with Captain America and Bucky. You know, with Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan. So you know, there was this you know, kind of narrative that floated that they had some kind of extracurricular relationships outside of being friends, and they weren't gay enough. And you know, I mean, I always think it's like this stuff is meant to program people, both right and left. And, you know, they do give us these things oftentimes in movies where it's really overt, but at the same time, you almost become programmed to either see it or not see it. And it's like Scott Adams talks about, you know, people see two different movies from the standpoint of the reality that they perceive. And I just don't think that Ghostbusters would go there. I think that they're trying to sell nostalgia as hard as they can. And I also think that they don't want to upset the apple cart from the standpoint of pissing off the fans, because they've already been there with that Leslie Jones Ghostbusters, which has basically sort of been retconned.
Oh, that was awful.
Fortunately, it's been retconned. I'm typically not a fan of retconning anything, but you know, I never watched that because I couldn't even get past the trailers. It repulsed me. So I never watched the female Ghostbusters, but I did like Afterlife. I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a little formulaic. You know, but this is
I like the crossover with kind of like Goonie type of thing.
Yeah.
Like you have the little Asian kid who was like Gadget in the Goonies.
Yeah.
He was podcast, you know,
right,
and all the kind of tip of the hats to that. And I thought that was a cool mix with the old guys. And I'll tell you what, Brett, in this movie, Dan Aykroyd gets a lot more screen time. And I had to Google it afterwards. He's into all this supernatural stuff.
Oh yeah,
when he's saying these lines, those are stuff that he really knows.
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
big up or scripted.
It goes. His family is deep into that kind of stuff, and that's kind of where he gets a lot of it. But I'm glad that Dan gets screen time. I love Dan Aykroyd, and I think he's really talented. But yeah, the other thing I was going to say is that Phoebe is kind of tomboyish in a lot of ways, and that's another thing that just doesn't seem to exist anymore is tomboys. You know, and if you are a tomboy, well, you know, maybe you need to transition or something. You know, and we don't have to get into that. But I do think that there's a world where you're free to be a tomboy if you're a girl, and you can be into, you know, stuff that guys are into. There's nothing wrong with that. Tomboys are cool. I was friends with a lot of tomboys growing up, so they can be great friends.
Oh yeah, and it's great to have fun together and stuff. Yeah. So I highly recommend Frozen Empire. Mm-hmm. It's good for us older ones that watch the original one. For the new generation, Paul Rudd, man, I wish I looked that good at that age.
It's amazing, too.
He gets a lot of good screen time, and I would love to meet him sometime and said, "You did great on Frozen Empire and Afterlife. What the hell happened in Quantumania?" You know,
you know what? I give those guys a pass. You know, you really, and it's the same with Henry Cavill and a lot of these actors, you know, who are in, you know, what we kind of, you know, what we sort of judge to be not so great movies. Okay.
Right.
They you know, they show up on the set, they got to do the best they can given what they're given from the standpoint of the script. Plus they show up to these sets just full of green screen and people running around in these, you know, these head to toe green screen suits. And that's got to be really hard to act within and try and conjure up some kind of performance when you're not dealing with anything real. So, but you know, it's amazing. I first saw Paul in Clueless in the theater, back in the
that's
90s.
right. Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I, to me, I always thought he stole that movie. As funny as Alicia is and everyone else, Brittany Murphy's so great in that. To me, I sort of identified with Paul as the Gen Xer, the college guy, because that's sort of where I was at in life. And I just thought, who is this guy? I like him. There's something really, really likable about him. And obviously, he just kind of eats up the screen. He's just one of those guys. So.
Yeah, that one of those guys that really have it. And so anyway, folks, it's a great movie. If you haven't seen Afterlife, I would see that first.
Yeah.
The only critique, and I'll go more into it in my review, is I liked the soundtrack to the first one better than this soundtrack, but it wasn't bad. And actually, the young lady who plays Phoebe wrote a song for it.
You walk out the door, then you walk back in the second that it's cold outside, and you see I've got something to give, and I'd give it to you 100 times over, till you screwed me over just like the last time, saying it was the last time. I paid the price, staying alone in my room after what happened in June, thinking I really loved you, and maybe I still do. But I think you're honestly something I needed to lose. No, it's not healthy, it doesn't help me, but I do it anyways. Looking at photos, reading the letters that you gave me. I could never throw them out, 'cause a ghost never leaves a haunted house. Never leaves a haunted house. I get reminiscent when somebody says your name. Almost glad I miss it, 'cause it's better than not feeling a single thing, even after all the white lies, empty goodbyes, all the tears and all the times you weren't there when I needed you to be, hoping you're right where you wanna be, even if it's not with me. No, it's not healthy, it doesn't help me, but I do it anyways. Looking at photos, reading the letters that you gave me. I could never throw them out, 'cause a ghost never leaves a haunted house. A ghost never leaves a haunted house. A ghost never leaves a haunted house. We will live and live, but we die now. The silence used to be so loud. So glad that I can hear my sound, 'cause a ghost never leaves a haunted house. I think we're on our final scene. Keep us good in all our memories, so I don't have to throw them out. A ghost never leaves a haunted house.
Which is quite good. I didn't even know she was a musician. So
that's cool.
Go see Frozen Empire. It's a great popcorn movie. I smiled and laughed so hard, Brett, my face hurt afterwards. I mean, it's mostly just grinning. Those, you got those fanberries and people. Some of the YouTubers out there complain about movies having fanberries in it, but that makes me feel good. Hey, busted makes me feel good.
Right. That stuff, that's part of what the movie is selling, is nostalgia. So, and
Yeah.
you know, and they're going for boomers, they're going for Gen Xers, they're going for millennials. These are people who have discretionary income, they have families that they can bring. So you're trying to take a franchise and make it multi-generational. So I don't fault them for doing any of that, because largely the impetus behind even bringing these franchises back is not only were they successful and fun back in the day, back in the 80s and 90s, but they can be fun again because you're basically playing to the same crowd, only they have kids, and hopefully there's, the studios see longevity in that they can continue on. So plus, we got to give credit where credit's due. Ghostbusters did not go in and kill off all of the main characters to then be left with these new characters. They've integrated them. And I think that had Star Wars done that, not killed off all the main characters and integrated them with the new characters, I think it probably would have stood a better chance of being a better franchise.
Okay, so let's take this a step up. I don't see DEI as going away. I have some friends in the military who I can't mention their names, because I tell you what, if they're the military, I don't mean to sound conspiratorial at all, but I know people in branches of the military, they are hiring hardcore DEI people who would have no problems doing whatever orders they have to do, and some of them are nutcases. And you know what, Brett, if they talk about it, they could lose their retirement, they'd be fired, everything.
Yeah.
So and that goes back to the actors too. Actors and actresses. There's two different kinds. Actors and actresses still have to work. That's how they make their living. So do they take all the gigs that, that are perfect for them? Maybe not, but they got to keep food on their table. So again, as you said, I don't fault them, but with this all, with the lessons Disney as a company should have learned, people are saying, oh, they're backtracking. Oh, they're rethinking Marvel. Oh, I don't think so. I think it's a bait and switch.
Well,
what do you think?
I think that other studios are pivoting from that stuff. And I can certainly point to things, like Reacher and Terminal List and Tulsa King and Yellowstone. And, there are certainly areas where I think Paramount and others have pivoted away from that stuff. But I think that Disney is sticking to it. I just don't think that they're going to change. I think they're going to go down with the ship. And really, the sad part about DEI is that ultimately the best qualified people for these jobs, whether it's the writers or the actors or even behind the camera from the standpoint of the cinematographers and the gaffers, if they're going to apply this DEI quotas system to hiring people, they're not going to hire the most talented, the people who deserve to be there. Those people are going to be left behind in order to meet quotas and pull in underrepresented groups for, whatever that means. So I see it everywhere. I see it a lot in advertising. I see it in obviously movies and TV shows and stuff like that. This Acolyte trailer, I was sitting there watching it, and they've got that shot of the Jedi Council with all the little kids. There's not one white boy in that entire room of little Jedis, of little Padawans, and most of them are all female. I'd say about 90% of them are all female. And I just think to myself, this is silly. It's just silly. It's so obvious what they're doing. And there's a bunch of white little boys who could have been Padawans who were passed over because they're filling quotas. They're meeting quotas. They're applying this DEI to the hirings from the standpoint of the actors that are in front of the screen. And it's the same with the writers. You're just not going to get the best stories because those people are being replaced with with writers who represent underrepresented groups, quote unquote. So it's bad, and I'm watching all these Boeing planes with tires falling off and the door flying off. And I'm just thinking to myself, is Boeing applying DEI within their hiring practices when it comes to engineers and mechanics and people that work on airplanes? Like how deep does this go? Because it doesn't just end with entertainment. It seems to be infecting all areas of the economy. And you know, we all want the best person to work on the airplanes, the most qualified people. We want the best people flying the airplanes, the most qualified people. And if they're going to use this DEI, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to get that kind of outcome. So, and it's the same with, what is it, Washington or Oregon passed, I think it was Washington State passed, you know, you don't have to pass the bar exam anymore in order to be a lawyer. So we're basically seeing, you know, this erosion of merit and success related to how people hire people, and that's typically what you look for is the best qualified, the person who's successful, who can do the job, who has the qualifications and has put the time in. And you know, it's either about merit, or it's about race, or it's about gender. And I just think it's really dangerous. And I think the precipitous decline in entertainment that we've seen is largely due to the fact that they're just not hiring the best people, you know. And you can see it, dude. You can see
and
it.
I was on one movie set one time when I was with Gary Lewis and the Playboys. We were in his dad, who is Jerry Lewis the comedian's movie, Hardly Working. We're just a band in a barroom scene. I can tell you, this was 79 or 1980, I think, somewhere in there. It was heavily unionized.
Oh, yeah.
You don't drive a truck onto a lot unless you're in the union, you know? And so where are the lawsuits that you know, the movie industry is heavily
oh, yeah.
Unionized, you know, and a lot of the Dems are you know, go pro union.
Oh, yeah.
Well, where are the lawsuits of Palin Stale losing their job?
Well, they're starting, you know, obviously Gina Carano, there's NBC is being sued by one of their writers who was fired because he's white, and male, for SEAL Team. He was a writer for SEAL Team, the TV show. There are some lawsuits that are starting now based on discrimination, and they're pulling in the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, into it. So it's beginning. Hopefully they're successful, because really all of this stuff violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, you know, which goes back to 1964. So it's bizarre to me. I mean, they're hiring based on color. They're hiring based on gender, and that's illegal. And it's also, I think it's immoral. I think it's un-American. And it completely flies in the face of what America's always been about, which is, you know, we hire the best, you know, for all areas of industry. You know, I don't care if you're a teacher or you're an airline pilot, you're an airline mechanic, or if you're an actor or you're a writer or you're a gaffer. You know, you want the best people attached to your, you know, to your business in order to yield the best results. And we're seeing what DEI yields, and frankly, it sucks. And now it's infecting gaming, and it's kind of blowing up again in gaming. It's just insane.
Well, and you see the result of that is the foreign movie market really has an opportunity. Indie comics, huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Indie movies, huge opportunity.
Right.
You know, I mean, look at what Godzilla did.
I know.
You know, and that was all in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you get pulled in emotionally with reading subtitles.
I know.
Look at Shogun.
I have not seen it, but I'm hearing everybody is talking about how good that series is.
Yeah, and I even watched the original. Yeah, with Richard Chamberlain.
Yeah,
actually, Richard Chamberlain took it more of a comedic type of spin on it. You know.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it since it aired. We watched it. I think it was a 2 or 3 night event back in 1980. But I remember my mom watching it, and then therefore I had to watch it because we only had one TV in the house. But I remember liking it just because it was it's a tale of adventure, and Chamberlain's fantastic. He was such a huge star back then. You know, people.
Yeah, Thornbirds also was a very cool thing. You know,
right? But yeah, I'm interested. You know, I'd like to see it, and I'd like to watch the original too, just as an adult. You know.
And that's why, as Gonzo, Dr. Gonzo and Gonzo TV, I've been allowed to bring back some old vintage stuff that you're not going to see on Disney Plus. I beat them at their own game with my Song of the South review. I pushed back. I said, I own a copy. It doesn't matter. It may not be sold in America, but it's still being sold. And if you want a copy of the Song of the South, go to E-Crate. There's more scalpers on eBay instead of E-Crate, but you can still find copies of it that aren't pirated. They're just they're allowed to be sold in China and stuff like that, to where they will take a movie poster like Black Panther and cover Chadwick Boseman's face, for crying out loud, or Finn's face to remove him from the poster.
Right.
But yeah, we'll still take their money. And I found I'm going to play a little bitty trailer, and then we're going to comment on it just a little bit. 2 old vintage things that I now have on Gonzo TV.
Like the devil himself, they say.
He vanished like a ghost.
To British authorities, he's a traitor and a smuggler.
Does this madman think he can blackmail a crowd? Run, Rico!
To the poor villagers, he's the only hope in their struggle against tyranny and oppression. Patrick McGowan stars as the quiet vicar of Dimchurch.
Can nobody stop the villain?
Dr. Sin, alias the Scarecrow.
There he is!
I love that because and now I was a big fan of Patrick McGowan. He was also in a real weird series called The Prisoner. The Prisoner he was a spy, and he was taken into this odd village. It's almost like M. Night Shyamalan type stuff. And every time he tried to escape from the village, this giant white ball would come after him and get him. And those things are available out there. But back to Dr. Sin. I've been to Romney Marsh I've been in the UK several times, and it's an actual place. Dr. Sin was an actual person who was a smuggler and helped the British. He was like a Robin Hood. He reminds me of Batman because he's scary, but he never killed. And that was real strict with that,
Interesting.
So I mean, that's
definitely
great old Disney that you won't see,
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. That's from I think it's from the 60s. Is that movie? And it's just kind of amazing hearing characters in a Disney film talking about fighting totalitarianism and oppression, and the government. And the hero of this tale is basically kind of a Robin Hood vigilante who fights against the government, fights against the powers that be. And we don't get anything like that from Disney anymore. Plus, that movie is very much targeted at boys. That's not a princess brand necessarily. That's not Snow White. That's not Sleeping Beauty. That's obviously made for boys, young boys and young men. And we don't get that kind of stuff from Disney anymore. It's all about catering to the females and really neglecting the male and that demographic.
But the females will watch Reacher because he's buff.
Yeah,
they like.
Well, and they like heroes too. It just so happens it's definitely a plus when they're handsome and they're muscle bound and they're kind of unabashedly heroic. So I mean, of course they'll watch that. Absolutely. So I mean, girls like that. I mean, girls like certain things too, like rom-coms, and a lot of us guys sometimes have a hard time making it through those. But at the same time, there's certain things that girls like, there's certain things that boys like, and that's totally cool. The idea is to cater to both sexes, and then you've also got things that cross over. I mean, these are things that Hollywood used to do. They don't do anymore. Not as often as they can or they should. Right.
And Walt was heavy into actual history. One more snippet of a trailer to show.
Walt Disney presents from Frontierland, The Swamp Fox. The Birth of the Swamp Fox. Starring Leslie Nielsen.
I've had enough of this. Even bloodhounds couldn't catch that swamp fox in country like this. Come with me.
Swamp Fox.
That's what Tarleton called me. And I'm much obliged to him for the idea, because we'll hole up here by day and we'll strike by night.
In the spring of 1780, when Colonel Francis Marion first came to prominence, America's war for independence seemed all but lost. Washington's hard-pressed army was deteriorating in New Jersey, waiting for reinforcements from General Lafayette. But the French were bottled up by a British fleet standing off the mouth of Narragansett Bay. Down at Charleston, General Lincoln and his colonial army faced imminent attack by land and sea, and royal garrisons had already been established along the Carolina frontier from Rocky Mount to the Atlantic. Along this line, it was the enemy's plan to divide the colonies and conquer them one part at a time. Suddenly, to the surprise of Cornwallis, his communications were cut, his supply trains were intercepted, and isolated outpost garrisons were destroyed. In this darkest hour of his country's need, the Swamp Fox had been born. And he and his hardy band of freedom fighters were on the move. To the American patriots who lived and fought throughout those uncertain days, Colonel Marion was a hero, second only to George Washington. Even after the fighting ended and our new nation began to expand westward, the legend of the Swamp Fox was told and retold around 1,000 campfires. The result today is that there are 17 counties and 29 cities and towns scattered throughout the United States that proudly bear the name of Marion. Now this is the first of several stories we will bring you about the daring adventures of America's Robin Hood of the Revolution, the Swamp Fox. Its title?
It's fabulous.
Yeah, and how many kids know that?
Well,
okay, now here's a stinger. Here's a stinger. The movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson, that is based on that, on Francis Marion,
yep.
Who was a Swamp Fox, who did some pretty sketchy things to get things done. But his whole character against Cornwallis was based on Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Watching that kind of stuff, Brett, made me want to eat history books.
Oh, yeah.
And read the novels on that. Would we see that at Disney today, do you think?
No, absolutely not. I mean, what Walt is cleverly doing there is teaching American history and thus preserving American history, teaching it in a positive light. He is, sort of showing what is good and inherently exceptional about the country. I mean, that's the overall point, but he's doing it with entertainment. He's doing it with action and adventure. And it's just brilliant. It's such a brilliant way to reach young people who typically get really bored reading history books. And he knows that. He understood that. So that's why he made these. And there's another one that he did on a record on Texas John Slaughter. I mean, he's profiled American men who shaped the country, whether it's the Revolution or whether it's the Old West. And I think it was an attempt to teach history, but also to preserve American culture and the West and Western civilization, because these guys had a big hand in allowing it to flourish, and the country to become what those 13 colonies ultimately to become America. So I just think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And I just say to myself, that's for boys too. Boys would love that. And I was the same way. I think, probably the most obvious movie that I could point to where I got interested in history was when I watched the first Young Guns in 1988 from Chris Kane. He's the director, Dean Kane's dad. And, it's such a great movie, but it got me interested in the Old West, in Billy the Kid, in the Santa Fe Rain, and I went to the library and I, checked out books, and I hit the Encyclopedia Britannica, and was looking up all this stuff. So through entertainment, Walt is showing good entertainment, wholesome entertainment. And I think The Patriot is probably another great example of entertainment, which then can push people into reading more and understanding more about that character. So, and those guys, man, make no mistake, the Swamp Fox, these guys, they fought asymmetrical warfare against the British. They were basically like the Viet Cong. They were shooting from the
Guerrilla
trees.
warfare.
Yeah, they didn't ascribe to this idea that you're going to line up with a bunch of soldiers and shoot your muskets, and then they step back, and then the other guys step forward, and while they're reloading, and there was this gentleman's agreement about how war was conducted back then, and there's no way that the American troops, with the lack of forces, the lack of weapons, the lack of resources, could fight that way. So they fought the only way that they knew how. And the Swamp Fox, I think, some of the lore behind that was that in fighting, I think, a lot of the Native Americans, he learned a lot of their trade secrets and fought kind of like they did, because, again, that's how the Native Americans fought us too. They fought us asymmetrically. It was guerrilla warfare. So, it's amazing.
Walt played it both sides too, because if in the Swamp Fox episode 7 or episode 8 was called a Woman's Courage, and on Walt's intro, which is on each one of these, he says women in those days were tough too. Oh, yeah. Women were courageous, and he depicts women not as helpless creatures in this. In Dr. Sin, the lady who's a barkeep, she's very heroic. And pioneer women were tough. Oh, yeah. Clint Eastwood movies. Clint Eastwood, I think, portrayed that a lot in the movies. But for those who would say, "Oh, Walt is misogynistic," or not, no, he wasn't. No. He lifted up women as brave and courageous too. He did it with a lot of the princesses. Oh, yeah. Showing that they were brave and courageous. And before we miss that, I had somebody comment. They go, "Oh, is that Leslie Nielsen from The Naked Gun from Airplane?" Yeah.
And from Forbidden Planet as well, which is great sci-fi. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he did great dramatic roles.
He did. And that's really what he was known for. And it was largely what got him the job with the Zucker brothers. Was they grew up watching him. They were familiar with his work, and they knew that he could play the straight man better than anybody. And that's ultimately what they had him do in Airplane, which then led to Police Squad and then The Naked Gun. So,
well, the brilliance about that is you take guys like Bridges, what is it? Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges, yeah.
Yeah, from Sea Hunt. I used to watch Sea Hunt. Shows how old I am. And Robert Stack.
Yeah.
From oh gosh.
Untouchables. Right.
In funny roles.
Yeah.
Leave It to Beaver's mom. Talking Jive, Oh man, you couldn't even do that.
Well, and they did it all straight. I mean, that's what's so funny about that movie, is that really the only guy that breaks and is goofy is the Johnny character.
Put out a general bulletin to suspend all meal service on flights out of Los Angeles. Tell all dispatchers to remain at the post. It's going to be a long night. How about you talking, Johnny? No thanks. I want Mayday. What the hell is that?
Mayday? Why, that's the Russian New Year. We'll have a big parade and we'll serve hotter.
Johnny, what can you make out of this?
This? Well, I could make a cap, or a brooch, a pterodactyl.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines. Johnny, how about some more coffee?
No thanks.
Who's flying the plane? One of the passengers. But he's an experienced Air Force pilot who flew during the war, so there's no cause for alarm. Henshaw, take over. What kind of plane is it?
Oh, it's a big, pretty white plane with red stripes and curtains in the window and wheels, and it looks like a big Tylenol.
Watch that oil temperature. What the hell's he doing up there? Stryker, that plane can't land itself. It takes a pilot who can handle pressure. Ease off, Rex. He hasn't flown for years. It's not his fault. It could happen to any pilot.
It happened to Barbara Stanwyck.
You push him too hard. He might break. Gotta remember who you're dealing with.
Nick, Pete, Jared, there's a fire in the barn.
Bad news. The fog is getting thicker.
And Leon's getting larger.
Boss, head man, top dog, big cheese, a head honcho.
Captain, look at this.
Passengers certain to die. Airline negligent.
There's a sale at Penny's.
All right, I'll need 3 men up in the tower. You, Nubar, you must see us.
Me, John, big tree.
Stand by, Stryker. We're going to the tower. Good luck. We're going to the tower.
The tower? The tower? Rapunzel! Rapunzel!
Your husband and the others are alive. but unconscious.
Just like Gerald Ford.
Now, there's a chance that we can save him if Stryker can get that plane down in time.
That isn't much of a chance, is it?
I don't know, Lynn. I don't know. But we're doing everything we can. Now, excuse me, huh?
Where did you get that dress? It's awful. And those shoes and that coat. Jeez. Just kidding.
Who kind of jumps in and out of scenes. He unplugs the runway lights.
Oh, the ball-headed guy.
Right. And then he breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience. He's the only guy in that movie that is overtly silly. Everyone else just plays it completely straight. And, it's just priceless. Robert Stack going into the airport and fighting all of the Hare Krishnas and the Bible pushers, because I remember that the airports kicked those people out a long time ago. But in the early 80s, when you went to the airport, they would barrage you and handing out all these pamphlets and everything. It was
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.
And
that was Lloyd Bridges, not Jeff Bridges.
Yeah,
the dad. And Jeff Bridges and Bo Bridges were in Sea Hunt with Lloyd Bridges.
That's right.
Another great show. A lot of these things you can find on YouTube. So, Brett, let's make some suggestions on good stuff to watch.
Yeah.
What have you watched recently that you would suggest?
We started The Gentleman on Netflix last night. It's from Guy Ritchie. If you're familiar with the movie with Matthew McConaughey and Colin Farrell, this is based in the same world. I'm not quite sure if it is a prequel yet or what's going on, but so far we're only one episode in, and I really liked it. I think Guy's been on a pretty good roll lately. He obviously
he does good movies, man.
He does. I mean, I liked Lock, Stock, and Smoking Barrels. I liked Snatch. I kind of lost him a little bit for a little while with some of the Sherlock Holmes stuff. That didn't quite speak to me with RDJ, but people love those movies. They made a lot of money.
Yeah, I kind of like them. So yeah.
But I really like The Gentleman. I still feel I've only seen it once, so I probably need to watch it again. The movie. I thought Matthew McConaughey was great. I thought Colin Farrell stole it. He really stole it for me. He plays this guy named the Coach, and he's this Irish guy who's just hilarious and just perfect. He's as only Colin Farrell can kind of do that role. But so far I'm liking this. I think we're gonna continue on with it because it was a really strong first episode. I didn't even look to see how many episodes there are, but
I binge watched the whole thing, man. It's great.
Did you? Yeah.
It really just builds and builds and builds.
Well, and I just think that Guy understands how to make movies for men. I think obviously women can watch them too and enjoy them, but I think that Guy makes movies for guys, and I think that's important. I think that's a demographic that just doesn't get visited much, but it's changing. We are starting to get more stuff. I did see that Jack Carr posted that they are filming Terminal List, the prequel, with Taylor Kitsch. It's called Dark Wolf, and I'm sure we'll probably see that next year, I would imagine. But Reacher season 3 is being filmed right now. They went straight from season 2 into season 3, so that's coming out. But yeah, I really liked that. Trying to think.
See, and and we've talked about this before. Even in The Gentleman, there's hot, ruthless chicks in there too.
Yeah,
chicks.
Well, and the girl who, I don't want to spoil it, but the girl who works for the organization that uses the lead's land.
Right.
She's interesting because she's very smart, but she's very stoic. She's not a girl boss. She's not know-it-all. She's not there diminishing the males in any way or speaking down to them. She's really kind of a problem solver. She's trying to work a deal so they can continue to use this gentleman's land for their own purposes, which happens to be growing something, which is illegal. But I like her. I think she's interesting, and I like that it's a smart, sophisticated role that's not snarky or condescending in any way to the other characters. And I thought that was really refreshing. So, and everybody,
I like her because she holds her hand of cards close to her chest. You know what I mean? She's and she's got a great chest too. But anyway,
she's gorgeous too. She's very pretty. So there's a feminine quality, and then there's also these underlying strengths that so far does not have her, beating up 250-pound men or anything like that. So it's also good to see Vinny from Lock, Stock, and some of the older Guy Ritchie movies. He plays the groundskeeper. I forget his last name, but he's got that great face. And
he plays Jeff.
He used to be a pro soccer player back in the day before he was in the Guy Ritchie movies. But he obviously is kind of a character actor, but I like seeing
Jolie Richardson from The Patriot, who's still drop dead gorgeous. Plays the mom in that. Ray Winstone, a real strong supporting cast.
Right. We did go see Dune, and I liked it. I thought it was good. Dune Part 2. We went and saw that last week. So I would recommend that. If you liked Part 1, I think you'll like Part 2 better. But I still, there's just still something about David Lynch's 1984 film, which is very flawed. It's got its problems, but there's something still about that movie that I still kind of prefer it to what Denis has done. But I think what Denis has done is amazing. And I also think that it's really great to see the popularity of that movie, and the fact that it's making all this money shows that science fiction is kind of more mainstream than it was obviously in 1984. So,
well, the only disappointment with, I don't want to give anything away, but the guy who played Fade, who originally was Sting's part,
right?
That guy's a maniac, man. He's scary.
That's Austin Butler.
Great actor.
He is.
My only problem with it is with Zendaya, and I don't care for her.
Me neither.
I liked her in it. I didn't hate her in it.
Yeah.
Like I hate her as MJ, but I didn't buy into the love.
Me neither.
Because I read the books. Me
neither. I did not get the love. I did not get the relationship there. I didn't get a love story there. I did get a love story with Kyle MacLachlan and Sean Young in David Lynch's version. I definitely bought into that. Let's face it, Sean Young is way hotter than Zendaya, and that's I don't even think that's arguable. Sean Young is almost like Vivian Leigh. She's like old school Hollywood beauty.
Yeah.
So I don't expect that out of Zendaya, because she's just not. I thought she was just kind of flat. And like I said, because of that, I didn't really buy into the love story. And towards the end, you really don't know what her feelings are for Paul. She's very indifferent about the whole thing. So, and also I think
Javier Bardem stole every scene he was in. I think
he and Josh really shine out of
all this. Josh is great. Yeah.
Josh is great. I mean, I've always loved Gurney. That was one of my favorite characters next to Duncan Idaho. But Gurney was really the guy that I connected with in the books. And then obviously Patrick Stewart
Stewart did a great job.
Just killed it. But Josh, to me, I think stands out maybe the most. And then I think, then I think Javier is Stilgar, and Tim is good. Tim is great. I gotta. He's very talented. But at the same time, I do still prefer Paul's portrayal by Kyle. It's a little bit less emo, and it's a little bit more kind of
MacLachlan was older too.
He was.
Tim,
which doesn't match the
Willy
book.
Wonka.
No, the book, they are. I think Paul's like 15 or 16 or something like that. And by the time, the final battle with the Emperor rolls around, I think it's a couple years after that, because they have been on this, this tear of destroying all of the spice production on Arrakis, which builds into that point where they finally have that head to head with the Emperor. But, Walken, I didn't get it. I didn't understand why they cast him.
That was a surprise. I didn't know he was in the movie. And I don't.
Could have been anybody, dude.
I prefer Jose Ferrer,
or bring in Anthony Hopkins or something. I mean, they could have stuck anybody in there, and I just think Walken's getting old. I just didn't see somebody who was really engaged so much.
It was
just
sort of very dry.
He was, and he's just reading lines. It could have been anybody. And at the same time, it was a little bit weird because he's still doing kind of Christopher Walken talk. That was. I was like,
I know, which works in movies with Denzel and Line of Fire, whatever that one was.
I mean, he's a great actor. I absolutely love Christopher Walken. a great movie from him from the 80s that a lot of people missed was King of New York.
King of New York's a great movie. Yeah.
David Caruso. There's a bunch of people in that movie, but it's one of those movies kind of like Deep Cover with Larry Fishburne that people missed, which are these incredible low budget or mid budget action movies that are great to revisit. So, but yeah, I would say definitely The Gentleman. I'm trying to think if we've watched anything else. I know Clarkson's Farm is starting up. Season 3 is starting up soon. We'll be watching that because that's a fantastic series. If you haven't seen seasons 1 and 2 of Clarkson's Farm, I highly recommend it.
What channel is that on?
Prime is doing that. And Jeremy Clarkson is from the original Top Gear TV show over in the UK, which was produced by the BBC. I think they're still doing it, but it's not the original 3 members. The original 3 was James May, Jeremy Clarkson, and what's his name? Richard Hammond. And they did like 17, 20 seasons of Top Gear over there. And then Jeremy Clarkson, I think, wrote an article bashing what's her face, Prince Harry's Meghan Markle. He bashed Meghan Markle, and then I think the BBC like let him go or fired him or something. So then they went and took kind of a similar show to Prime called The Grand Tour, and they did 3 seasons of that, and then that spawned into Jeremy Clarkson doing Clarkson's Farm, which is him. He bought this farm up in the what's it called, the Coswalds or something like that. It's the English countryside outside of London. He has no idea how to farm it, and he employs this kid who lives on a farm next to him that knows how to farm and work the land, and he kind of teaches him how to farm. And then they open up this little store, and it turns into this fight between Jeremy and the town because he wants to sell the local vegetables and meat and cheeses from the local farmers, and the town doesn't want to allow him to have this store because they think it's going to bring all this traffic and all of this noise and bother into their sleepy little town. So it's this show that originally was about this novice learning how to farm and how hard it is to farm and how difficult it is and how it's basically kind of like roulette. You never really know what's going to happen because the rains can change, the wind. I mean, all these intangibles can screw up a harvest. And then it kind of morphs into this fight against government and regulations. And you start to see what farmers deal with from the standpoint of what they can farm, when they can farm, if you can open up a store, if you can open up a restaurant. So he fights with the town. And it kind of turned into this educational series about overreaching government and how these people that run this town, these local representatives, are so out of touch with the people that are the farmers and the people that raise the cows and the goats and the cheese and the potatoes and everything. And it's just this fascinating look at I think current culture in government and sort of the divide between the people that run the show from the standpoint of the local officials and the people actually on the ground that, like you and I, who make America or in this case, England actually work, So it's this, I don't think that they ever intended the show to be about anything other than Jeremy learning how to farm and it being really comical and funny because he has no idea what he's doing. But that's what pulls the audience in because I don't know anything about farming. And the average viewer doesn't know anything about farming. So you're kind of going on this journey with Jeremy Clarkson on how to learn how to farm, drive a tractor, lay seed, row and till and do all this stuff and deal with things like badgers, which can then destroy your farm, and putting cows in different pastures and all this
stuff. They don't
stuff.
need no stinking badgers, I guess. Huh?
But it's crazy. But then it turns into this thing where he's fighting the city council and he's fighting the town. And, a lot of people like what he's doing and they want to come to his restaurant. They want to come to his store and they want to buy things. And it's a fabulous show. So, and it got delayed for like a year for some reason. I don't know why, but they finally, because it was like the highest grossing show they had next to Reacher was Clarkson's Farm. Just crazy. So Yeah, you'd like that, Tim. You'd really dig it.
Yeah,
it's a
so
fun
there's
show.
great. I stumbled onto an old Chadwick Boseman movie, and I own most all of his. I mean, from where he plays the baseball player. What was that number? 29
Oh
or
yeah, right.
Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, the Jackie Robinson one.
It was 21 or 29 Bridges.
Okay.
Great movie about how they have to shut down Manhattan. I'd never seen it before. I found it on it was free, found it on Netflix.
Okay.
Great movie with Chadwick Boseman. And the Russo brothers are producers on it.
Nice.
So it's 21 or 29 bridges, however many bridges are on Manhattan. It's a heist flick, dirty
cool.
cops. You know, it has the guy who plays J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh yeah, he's great. I love that guy.
In it. Yeah. So, hey, going forward, folks, there is stuff to watch. You know, Tubi has stuff out there. I dumped Disney, and it was very hard, but I was finding so much vintage Disney that I couldn't find on Disney Plus.
Incredible they don't have that stuff
Why?
on Disney Plus.
Why? I don't know why. I don't know why.
Well, I think a lot of it is to erase Walt. I don't think that they want Walt. I don't think they want anybody even thinking about Walt anymore, which is ironic because it's his namesake. But I really believe that they're trying to erase or diminish as much as they can Walt's work, Walt's influence, and Walt's legacy, because it really doesn't jibe with the direction they're going today.
No.
You know, and you look at all that stuff, and it's just like, you know, that stuff would stick out from the standpoint of their direction and their messaging and their kind of activism. But it's amazing that that's not there, that none of that stuff is cataloged on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and that's why I want to put the Walt back in Disney, and that's why I'm not monetizing. I don't, you know, I'm not rich by any means, but I would rather not monetize and be able to do this stuff for educational purposes.
Yeah,
because fair use allows that, and I'll put it up there as long as I can. One last thing, wrapping this up, and thank you for your time, Brett.
Oh, sure.
I'll always love talking with a fellow Phoenician. What do you think about the George Lucas thing? We've talked about Marsha, how Marsha was really I was not surprised, man. I was disappointed.
Oh, he sided with the white slavers that he sold Disney to.
Yeah.
He said making magic is not for amateurs. Well, you know, it is for amateurs when you're hiring amateurs. And if you're using DEI to hire your talent, you're hiring amateurs. You're not hiring people that were hired and brought in based on merit or love of the lore, love of the, you know, intrinsic love of the things that they're working on. You know, this Leslie Hayland girl, I mean, what a disaster. What an absolute disaster. I mean, I just look at her past work and I just say to myself,
oh my gosh,
why would you hire somebody like this to tackle Star Wars? I understand why you'd hire Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni. I don't understand this at all. This is a DEI hire. And, you know, as Scott Adams said, and I don't think he said it, but he tweeted about it the other day. He said DEI really just stands for didn't earn it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I just don't think that any of these DEI hires have earned it. I don't think they've earned the right to be there based on merit, based on, you know, their past work. So it's a great irony that George would say that, but at the same time, I think that George, his loyalty is to his friends and the people that he knows and that he's familiar with, and you know, that is obviously not Nelson Peltz, who I think just endorsed Trump, funny enough. So, you know, obviously everybody's on different sides. You know, and George is very much on the side of the people that gave him billions. Was it $4 billion for the whole thing?
Right.
So I don't know if it's really surprising, but
it was disappointing.
It's disappointing, man. And I wish that, you know, I wish that things were different. I do think that there still is a possibility that you could hijack Disney from the inside if you could get this Nelson Peltz guy and, you know, and his group in charge of it. I still think that you can salvage what's there. And one of the ways you can salvage what's there is bringing back all that stuff that you're posting, you know, like the Swamp Fox, Dr. Sin, all that stuff. I mean, that stuff should be on Disney Plus, especially for the boys.
Yeah, and so what's your take on Jon Favreau? I've always liked him. I liked what he did with Mandalorian.
Oh yeah,
and all that. Do you think they're trying to push him out? Speculate, and folks, I would ask you, when you're out there in the YouTube world, people that say they have secret information or a secret source. I'm not saying they always don't. I know first call guys. I know some secret sources, and you know what? I don't ask them because they could get fired for giving me information. I know things are hush hush,
right?
And I want to also preface that by saying I trust Chris Gore and Alan Inc.
Yeah.
Those guys they're doing a great job on the D files, and now Chris is doing some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think they're going to do with Favreau?
I kind of get the feeling with John that if they're not going to let him do what he wants to do and have creative freedom, then he'll just go do something else. I mean, he's an independent contractor like anyone else, and I know they've locked up Dave Filoni, but I don't see them locking up Jon Favreau. And I would imagine that's doesn't mean that they wouldn't like to. I think they'd like to have his namesake and maybe him be a showrunner on some of this stuff, or at least contribute to the Star Wars universe. But I can also see John being uncomfortable with the fact that he's not going to be able to do what he ultimately wants to do. They're going to be sticking their fingers into things and saying, well, why don't we do it this way, John? And then, I mean, he's at the point in his career where I don't think that he needs the money. I don't think he needs the fame. And I don't think he really needs the hassle of dealing with a situation like that. So if it was me, I would just be kind of like, I've made The Mandalorian. I've done something cool. I've made something significant. I've given the Star Wars fans something they really love, especially with the first 2 seasons.
He was great with Marvel.
Yeah, he's great with Marvel. I mean, Iron Man is Iron Man 1 and 2. I still think are just dynamite films, and I don't think that Iron Man 2 gets enough love. I think that's a great movie. I don't, I mean, there's always going to be something special about Iron Man, the first one, because it's very similar to Batman Begins. There's something really, really special and moving about the story of Bruce Wayne and the story of Tony Stark, these origin stories. But I just kind of look at it from the standpoint of John doesn't need this. They need John. Right. John doesn't really need Star Wars.
He's got the cookie.
Yeah. And he, it's kind of like, you shine so bright with something like The Mandalorian, and I don't think they were really watching him when they were doing that. I think they just kind of let him go. And that's part of why it's so good is, you hire these really talented artists to come in and do what they do, and you don't muck it up. You don't lift your leg on everything. But, and the other thing is, it's like, if you're John, why would you want to deal with this gigantic bureaucracy when it comes to, making movies and people telling you, you can't hire this person, or you can't because of their skin color, or because of their gender, or, we want to make the Force female. Why would you want to deal with any of that stuff, especially if you're that kind of a guy who can sort of go out and write his own ticket at this point? He can kind of go do whatever he wants. So I'd love to see him stay, man, and do his thing and let him off the leash and just go do his thing. But it is a multinational corporation. And I just think that everyone needs to understand that those aren't places where creativity flourishes. And then you throw in all the DEI stuff, and it's just like, man, I mean, that really destroys any kind of creativity, especially based on merit. But creativity, art, it can't flourish and become something beautiful and wonderful inside of an environment that's like a giant bureaucracy, like a multinational corporation combined with DEI. There's just no way. And that's why we see the results that we're seeing, I mean, truly, it's, when I look at it, I'm just kind of like, at this point, I'm just kind of like, okay, I think it's just kind of busted for now. All this stuff is busted. It's broken. Could you put it back together? Maybe, but will it be relevant to a new generation? I don't know. I think there's a lot of generations now that just don't care about Star Wars because they haven't done anything with it, in a real significant manner. They've kind of taken it off in this weird direction. So, and like we talked about, with Marsha was just Marcia was incensed that they killed off the first three, the original characters. And,
Oh yeah.
And then, and then it's like, we're talking about Ghostbusters. It's just like, they didn't do that there, man. That wasn't, the whole idea was to bring back the original members and have them fight alongside or go along with the new characters on new adventures. And there's this kind of passing of the torch that can happen,
Great transition in this new movie too.
Yeah, but they just didn't go that direction with Star Wars. So, kudos to Reitman's kid, who obviously
he didn't direct Frozen Empire. He did Afterlife.
Yeah.
And I forget the director's name. I was surprised that he didn't direct it. They did dedicate the movie to Ivan, who passed in 22, of course.
I'm sure Jason was an executive producer or had some.
No, he was in the credits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was handled the same way. I believe. I couldn't tell any difference. I'm sure a professional critic could, but and just to end it again on the comic book world, Eric July's freaking tearing it up, man.
Yeah.
With
It's
Yara.
crazy, dude. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. What
that cover, that A cover, the main cover, is the first thing I ever colored for him. And it's me and Kanan White.
Oh, dude. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's I've colored Yaria on the short box that they did with all the Rippaverse comic book characters. And I did a couple other things with Yaria, but that very first cover with Kanan, because I've always been a big fan of Kanan. And when I got that, Eric sent that to me. I was just like, oh yeah, this is going to be fun. And I kind of went back to my days of coloring Killer Frost for DC, which is kind of a similar character who's got ice and winter as her powers.
Right.
But that was a lot of fun, and it was great to see that those guys were able to crack another $1 million, I think, in a day or two.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
It's just incredible. So yeah, they've got.
Did you color the A cover?
It was A cover. Yep.
Okay.
That was the one. Yeah. She's on a bridge, and it's from sort of the POV of one of the gunmen. And it's a really cool cover. I mean, it turned out really nice, and it's nice artwork to work with. So that always helps. But yeah, man, kudos to them. They're killing it. They've got this new Rippaverse magazine, which is a fanzine. I think they're going to be doing some short stories in there to kind of probably A/B test some characters that maybe could potentially become new campaigns. They've got the Horseman, and I think Goodying. I think that's coming out soon from Mike Barron and Will Conrad, who's a great artist. And then I'm pretty sure I got the word the other day that I'll be coloring a book. So I just got to get a little more information. But yeah, I was just trying to find the timing. So Eric's been wanting to get me on a book and color the interiors for a while, because up until this point, I've just been doing covers, merchandise, posters, T-shirts, a lot of the promotional
And there's
stuff.
some monsters out there beside Graham's forearms too.
Right.
Great job on that. Is Chuck? What's Chuck? I haven't. What's Chuck Dixon been doing?
I think he is. I think he's writing The Horseman.
That's right. That's right. Okay,
they created that, and then his book, his novel series, Levon Cade, that got bought by Balboa Productions. So Sly was originally going to turn that into a TV series, and then finally found a home for it with one of the studios. So they're about to shoot the first movie. They signed on for three of the Levon Cade books. David Ayer is going to be directing. Jason Statham is going to be starring, but I believe they're starting shooting in the spring, and it's the spring. So, it's exciting for Chuck to see one of his novels and his characters turned into what could potentially become the next Jason Statham action character franchise, which would be really cool. So, and I think they see the success of Reacher, and they see a similarity with Levon Cade, because there is a similarity there. And I think that's what the studios are saying. They're like, we want a Reacher. We need a Reacher. Paramount's got kind of a Reacher. I mean, they've got Terminalist. They got Jack Carr locked up. And then I heard the other day that Brad Thor, that his character, Scott Harvath, that is going to be finally adapted into, I think, a movie. I think they're going to start shooting. So, because he sold that years ago to one of the studios, and they sat on it. which happens a lot. You know, these studios will come and they'll buy an IP, they'll buy a franchise, and they'll just sit on it. You know, some production house will offer you, you know, a lump sum to own it, and then they'll either move on it and develop it, or they'll sit on it and wait for someone else to come in and buy it from them. And Brad's been waiting for years for them to adapt that into you know, a live action, and it's very Tom Clancy. You know, it's kind of in that same vein, or Vince Flynn, or Jack Carr, or what's his name from Lee Child from Reacher. It's kind of that action hero, Black Ops, CIA kind of guy. So
and
Levon
that
Cage
stuff still sells. You know, I
people
mean,
love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's universal, and I just think it appeals. It appeals to guys, you know, and I love seeing them start making movies for men. Because women like those movies too, but at the same time, there's a lot of guys out there who Hollywood's just basically abandoned for whatever reason, you know, because I guess we're all pale and stale, you know, male, pale and stale. So it's a joke, man. I mean, hopefully Hollywood will revert back to what was always the most important thing to them, which was money. And you get that by having meat in the seats, you know, and if they, you know, they can go back to that. They can go back to making money, and they just got to tell better stories, and they got to understand that men and women want different things, and that's okay. And it's okay to cater to both. You know what I mean? So fingers crossed that they get it and they start making better stuff. But, you know, until then, you know, we can pick and choose. You know, we can go and watch the stuff that we like Dune and Reacher and others, and not watch the stuff we don't, to send a message. And it's like, I read that it's like the top streaming shows right now on all the free streaming apps are all old shows. So we have the benefit of going back. We can always go back and watch Dynasty or Magnum PI or Dallas or, you know, Wanted Dead or Alive. They have a channel.
Man from Atlantis.
Man from Atlantis with Patrick Duffy. Yeah, I want to see that. I really want to see that.
Dude, I'm going to find some series on it.
You know,
see if I can plop it up and not get a strike.
I bet you could. You know, it's crazy. Probably. A couple of years ago, Lisa.
It was like the original Aquaman.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's, you know, those were kind of ways of doing comic book characters without having to go to Marvel or DC and get a license. Right. You know, but a couple of years ago, Lisa, Patrick Duffy does cameos. You know, you can hire him to send out a little message to a friend, you know, or a loved one.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
you know, on the website Cameo, there's a bunch of celebrities on there that'll do it, and you pay a flat fee, and I think they give you like maybe a minute, you know, and then you write in some details about the person they're supposed to wish a happy birthday to or Merry Christmas or whatever. But she hired Patrick Duffy to wish me a happy birthday. And it was so wild because at the time I was watching a lot of Dallas during the lockdowns, and I was just addicted to the show because it's frankly it's really good. So certain seasons are better than others, obviously, but Dallas is a very solidly great show and it's got like 14 or 15 seasons, man. I mean, it is deep. You know, you can binge for a long time.
Yeah, and they have so many shows sprout off of that too.
Right. Absolutely. Dynasty, you know, is probably the most famous one, which was created to compete with it, to be sort of its the other network's answer to it. But yeah, Patrick Duffy wished me a happy birthday. He went on for like way over the allotted time that he's actually paid for. And I just thought, what a nice guy. What a sweet guy. You know, I mean, he could have just done, you know, 60 seconds and he's out, but he actually, he gave me some extra love in that cameo, and it was
that's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was, I was blown away. Of course, a couple of years earlier, she had Robert Davi call me and wish me a happy birthday, and that blew my mind.
Who? Robert
Davi? Yeah, the Goonies.
Yeah.
Or really, I think at this point we can all say that Robert Davi is one of the greatest Bond villains ever, as Franz Sanchez in License to Kill. Absolutely one of the best, probably one of the most violent and vicious Bond villains of all time.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorites. But yeah, he called me. I didn't recognize the number, so I didn't pick it up. And he left me a voicemail. I called him back, and I've since talked to him and interviewed a bunch of times. But yeah, that was pretty wild. Because it's that voice, dude. When I heard that voice, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, a Bond villain just wished me a happy birthday. Jake Fratelli just wished me a happy birthday. That's crazy. Just crazy.
It's cool to think. Yeah, I've seen some of the Morgan Freeman stuff as well. So
yeah, absolutely. It's cool.
So shout out to Brett. Brett, what do you got coming up next week? Anything in Bounding into Comics? I'll go ahead and plug that again, what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm interviewing my buddy Jay Photos on Monday. That'll drop on Thursday. Jay is a longtime colorist, color Spawn, Sam and Twitch for a number of years for Todd McFarlane. He's got he had a comic book called The 68, which was a zombie Vietnam story, and they're doing an omnibus, and they're doing a Kickstarter for it. So it's the whole collected series. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages, and they're going to do a Kickstarter, and so I'm going to be interviewing about that. I've got my Conan Chronicles unboxing. So yeah, every Thursday you can see a new video of Bounding into Comics on their YouTube or their Rumble channel. And just try and
we'll provide a link for that down here, and cool. I'm pointing that's underneath
comment section,
thing,
right?
Yeah, not my crotch or nothing
right.
like that. So.
In the comments section, yeah. And then obviously just doing some coloring for people here and there, and hopefully I'll be able to announce my book with Eric July here pretty quick. So I'm just sort of waiting for the go ahead. It's one of those things where I'm always a little superstitious until I get those pages and I'm looking at them, and I get that script. I never really like to announce anything. So. But so far I've been doing it's been great working for Eric. So he seems like a
good
guy,
really cool guy.
Yeah, and he just he's one of those guys where he just allows you creative freedom. He doesn't tell you what to do or necessarily how to do it. It's just they send me the artwork and they rely on my better judgment of 30 years coloring. So because it's been about 30 years, it's pretty crazy. So my Brian Polito interview is actually really good because that's the guy that hired me into the comic book industry when I was like 19 years old. Right out of high school. I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago about it was the 30th anniversary of Lady Death, which is
DM me that link and I'll provide that down below too.
Yeah, you'd like that interview because it's there's a lot of inside comic book stuff. We talk about the bad girl craze of the 90s and kind of talk about some of the things that he did right and did wrong with Chaos Comics and it's kind of a strange blessing. He's got the character back and he's able to crowdfund these books and be successful. He's done 40 crowdfunds in 10 years, which is crazy, but it was fun. We reminisced, we talked about some of the older times, but it's interesting to go back and look at the indie market of the 90s because it was really exciting. And there are some parallels that we talk about to today's indie market, as well as obviously some differences. So, but that's another guy, kind of like Eric July, who just has this killer fan base that shows up because they trust him. They trust his work and they trust what he puts out. So it's pretty cool. So,
great. Brett, great to have you on the show. Appreciate your time.
Anytime.
My best to Lisa and your beautiful little pooch.
Cora, yes. Yep. Yeah, she was in here earlier, but she's downstairs because she's always looking for food. That dog. Such a chow hound. I've never had a dog I could free feed, and this is definitely not one of them. I have friends that have had dogs you could free feed. You just leave the bowl out. I can't do that with Cora. So she'd end up in like a food coma if I just let her do that. So.
Great. So everybody, Brett R. Smith here. Check out his links. Subscribe to Bounding into Comics. It's a great one. Support the channels you like and love. Remember, Dr. Gonzo has Vintage Disney up for the time being. I'll be heading out to Vegas April 8th, the same day as the solar eclipse, to join Chris Gore's little soiree down there and have a good time with some podcaster friends. So I will see you at the movies or on this channel, and 2 thumbs up from both of us. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.
Ever had your ass kicked by a 12-year-old nerd with an inhaler? Supper time, Spanky.
Nope.
What the hell are you two doing? It's called rocking out. You wouldn't understand, Dad. You're not with it. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, And what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.